So white cabbage doesn't fill a lot of people with excitement, but we love them here at Riverford. If you cook them for too long, if you destroy the texture, they release like a sulfurously stinky cabbagey compound, which gives a lot of people the heebie-jeebies. Heebie-jeebies. Today we're not actually going to cook it, we're going to make sauerkraut, which is a traditional sort of European fermented cabbage dish. It goes really great, you can stir it into soups, you can stir it into stews, it goes really well with cold meats, it goes excellent with smoky fish. As we briefly touched upon in the fermented chili sauce Veg Hack that we did a few weeks back, what we're doing when we're fermenting food is we're using salt to create an anaerobic atmosphere where the bacteria, the natural bacteria on the cabbage can convert the sugars into lactic acid. Not only because of the probiotic content, this is incredibly good for you, but also tastes delicious. It's got that sort of sweet, tangy, slightly sour sort of taste, which people associate with fermented foods. So as with any preserves, pickling, fermentation, you need to make sure all your equipment and your hands are as clean as possible. You don't want any sort of contaminants or extra bad bacteria to get in, because that will spoil the results. So with the cabbage, you need to remove the outer layers because there will be some dirt and stuff on that, so get that off. And then if you've got a food processor with a grater attachment, you need to shred or grate your cabbage. If you don't have that, then you can use your knife. The good thing about the white cabbage is they are so sort of compact and sort of tightly bound that there's not actually much dirt in them once you get through the first outer layers, so you can actually be pretty reassured that it's clean and you don't really need to wash it. So with your knife, you need to cut it now. Like I said, if you're going to use a food processor, then you just need to cut it into chunks. God, that's hard on my fork, isn't it? There we go. If you're going to do it by hand, then cut it into small bits like that. And then as finely as you can, take your time. Don't rush these things. Just slice it nice and thin. Enjoy the process. You know, the more time and care you put into something, the better the result, don't you reckon, James? Now that you've got your cabbage shredded, you need to weigh it. So whack it into your nice clean bowl with your nice clean hands from your nice clean chopping boards. So I've got 512 grams and we need to find 2% of that, which is 10? Is that right? 10? 5 would be, 5 would be 1%, wouldn't it? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 10 grams. The quantity of salt to cabbage is actually very important. That's why I weigh it out. It's called a baker's ratio. Now, some recipes will say add 1 or 2 teaspoons of salt per white cabbage. The problem with this is there's no standard weight of a white cabbage. So that 1 or 2 teaspoon as a percentage of the white cabbage can vary drastically. And that can be the difference between a perfect sauerkraut and then something which sours or spoils or could even potentially be quite dangerous. No jokes, listen, weigh it out properly, get the salt in, 2%. We know our percentage, so I'm gonna put 10 grams of salt in. Gonna massage this salt into the sauerkraut. Once again, clean hands, clean bowl. Really be quite, you can squish it. What we're trying to do is really sort of massage the salt into the cabbage. And this will help release the water from the cabbage. And that's what we're doing. We're making a brine from the salt and the natural liquids in the cabbage. And this not only, well, this, like I said, is the fermentation process. We're creating that environment where the bacteria can do its thing. But also, when we're removing the liquid from the cabbage, it helps actually preserve the texture of the cabbage. No two ways about it, this does take a little bit of time. Depends how busy you are, you can either just plod along slowly like I'm doing and just keep on massaging it, or you can do it for a little bit, leave it, come back, do it a little bit more. The result will be the same. We just need that salt to release the moisture from the cabbage. So I've been doing this now for just over 10 minutes and I've been doing it quite vigorously. I'm always surprised at how much moisture comes out of a cabbage, but as you can see now, there's literally pouring out of it. Kilner jars are really perfect for this because they've got the rubber seal. The gases released from the fermentation process can escape. No air can get in, so it's a really quite controlled environment. If you do it in a screw top jar, very important, you need to unscrew it every day, release the gases. It's called burping it. If you don't, maybe your jar would explode. Imagine that. Sour cabbage all over your kitchen. I packed it in, so you really do push it down, and you'll be able to see like the liquid has come up and it's sort of covering the top of the cabbage, and you want to pour the rest of your brine in as well. You really need to make sure that the cabbage is fully submerged under the sort of cabbagey brine that we've created. Now you need to get a bit of grease proof, stick it over the top, because what we want is to make sure it's fully submerged and no sort of oxygen is touching any of the cabbage at any time. Get a weight, stick it in, and what this does is just keeps it fully submerged at all time. Now this will take about 5 days to be ready, but it can last up to sort of 6 weeks. So there really is no rush to eat it once it's ready. It'll keep on getting better and better and more sour. So find a nice constant temperature area of your kitchen, put it on the shelf, and just check it daily. Make sure that the liquid hasn't sunk and the cabbage hasn't come out. Just keep an eye on it. If you leave it for a very long time, you might find the taste is a bit too intense, a bit too sort of sour for you. So if you get to a point where you like it, so keep on trying it, whack it in your fridge, because it'll slow down the fermentation and it'll stay at that stage for a lot longer for you to enjoy. So this is a sauerkraut one of the other Riverford chefs made about a week ago. And like I said, the longer you leave it, the more sort of sour it'll get, and it will last for a very long time. In fact, the Polynesians used to use this technique. They used to dig pits, line it with leaves, and use it to ferment bananas, breadfruits, and carrow. They actually dug one up fairly recently and found 300-year-old breadfruit, which was still perfectly edible. So don't worry about it going off on your shelf. Once you've got it to this stage, it's fantastic. You can use it to make other ferments. It's called backslopping, so it's a process of using something that's already fermented to speed up the process of fermenting something new. What it does is it automatically lowers the pH and already has that positive, good bacteria that we want. So you can get really creative and you can ferment a lot of other stuff really quickly if you use something which is already fermented. It's kind of like a sourdough starter. You're using something that's already fermented to give it that sort of sour taste to the whole thing. One of my favorite things to do with sauerkraut is to use it to make a bit of a cowboy kimchi. Now I know this is not traditional in the slightest and there's a lot of flavors and ingredients that we're missing, but you still get that really sharp kick from the chilies and the garlic and the ginger and the sourness from the sauerkraut. So it's definitely worth doing, especially if you haven't actually tried kimchi before and want to just have like a little dabble and see what it's all about. So I've made a really rough paste. What I've done is I've just blended up chilies, garlic, and ginger. You can add fish sauce. I think traditional recipes also use this type of Korean pear as well for a bit of sweetness. You can add seaweed in if you don't want to use the fish sauce. And what you want to do is just mix it in with your sauerkraut and just leave it, and then the whole thing will sort of mingle together and the flavors will combine beautifully. You can actually eat this straight away, but the longer you leave it, the more sort of developed and mature the taste will become. So to make this kimchi, it really couldn't be simpler. I've described what goes into the paste. Get your sauerkraut into your bowl, your mixing bowl, and then you want to sort of massage the paste you've made into the cabbage. Now I'm going to use a spoon because, like I said, I've put a lot of chili in this, and if I use my fingers, then I'll be crying for the rest of the day when I accidentally scrape my eyes or touch my face. And you can eat this straight away. It'll taste really fresh and really spicy and lovely. One of my favorite things to do is actually to make like a noodle salad and then mix the kimchi through. Or you can put the kimchi back in the jar and just let it ferment even further. And it's actually, you can really get quite nerdy and really enjoyable process, tasting it and seeing how long you can ferment it and what it tastes like and how it changes. The more you get into it, the more you enjoy it, and then you'll start thinking about fermented foods completely differently. I'm gonna put it back in the jar because I really like it when it goes super sort of sour and almost like fizzy to the taste, and because I want to take it home, actually, and not leave it here for anyone else. This is already fermented for about a week, so now that I've added the paste, I'm gonna try and leave it another week or two, but I really like it. I eat it on my eggs, I use it for everything, so if it lasts that long, I'll be lucky. I really hope you enjoyed that, and it's just giving you another little insight into the world of fermentation. If there's any other vegetable you'd like to see us talk about, learn, or cook, then just let us know, leave us a comment, hit the notification bell, and stay tuned for more weekly videos.